Welcome back to the channel. This will be my first draft for Matchday 4, where we get unlimited transfers for the round of 16, and we also had the mystery chip revealed. It is called the Qualification Bonus or Qualification Booster, and I'll discuss how it works and the best time to use it. So there is an updated chip strategy guide here that I'll delve into very briefly in this podcast, and I'll also dissect the fixtures, which are very important. On screen, you can see the mini league, and there is a code on the left-hand corner of your screen, but also in the description. The same goes for an auto-join link to make it even easier to join, and check out every other social media link and platform that you can check out, like my Spotify, Patreon, the Championships, Discord server, and also my X, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Thank you very much for all your support throughout this tournament. Be sure to like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. But let's get straight into this video, discussing the fixtures, the qualification booster, and my first draft for the round of 16. All but two groups have been decided, so we await who finishes first and second in groups G and H. So that features the likes of Juventus, Man City, and Real Madrid. And to be quite honest with you, Real Madrid will probably face one of those heavyweights in City or Juventus, and that could play a big part in which teams we load up on for the round of 16 and beyond. And if you don't have the wildcard at this stage of the competition to use in matchday 5, 6, or 7, I think you need to be very careful about how you play it. And with the qualification booster, of course, you want to pick players who go through and give you those additional points for advancing to the next round. But I think the next graphic will be very useful. We can see the confirmed fixtures on screen. So we have Palmeiras versus Botafogo in an all-Brazilian round of 16 tie. And we also have PSG versus Inter Miami, so Lionel Messi facing his former club. Then we have Chelsea versus Benfica, and it's not the way we expected, where we thought Chelsea would finish first and Benfica second and be on the other side of the group. Instead, it has turned out a little bit differently, with the Blues finishing in second, Flamengo top Group D instead, and they will face Bayern Munich, who lost to Benfica in matchday 3, and that's why they're on the other side of the draw. We also have Borussia Dortmund versus Monterrey, so River Plate are out. The same goes for Boca Juniors, so we have no Argentine sides left in this competition. And the final confirmed fixture is Inter Milan versus Fluminense, and we'll see what other matchups we get. Will it be Al Hilal versus Juventus and Man City facing Real Madrid once more? Or maybe could there be a twist to the tail and City will face Al Hilal or a different team instead from that group? It could be very interesting, I think. And once that is confirmed, I'll talk about it in my team selection podcast. But let's delve into the qualification booster and how we can optimize it for the Club World Cup. During the recent deadline stream, we got the reveal of the mystery chip, and it is called the qualification booster. The way it works is that players in your team who qualify for the next round will earn 2 additional points. Now, it was revealed after the matchday 3 deadline and when the matchday 4 transfers were open, and it can be used for 1 round during the knockouts. I would consider activating the qualification booster in matchday 4. With easier games to call during the round of 16, you can earn more qualification bonus points by using this chip as early as possible. Now, don't use this in matchday 7 because, for one, I think the maximum captain chip, if you still have it, would be a far better play. And also, the Club World Cup final is the last thing we have, and you're not going to get any points for going through to the next round per se. So I would recommend using this as early as possible. And whilst there are some difficult games to call in matchday 4, like Botafogo versus Palmeiras, I still think in the grand scheme of things, you will get more points from this booster by using it now in matchday 4. And besides, if you still have the wildcard, you can't use it because we all have unlimited transfers. So you're limited to all the other chips, basically, which can be used at any single stage of the competition. And all of my chips are dissected, or all of mine. All of the chips in this game are broken down in my chip strategy guide and also in the how to play video. But this is now the update chip strategy. If you somehow have every single booster remaining, I would use the qualification chip in matchday 4. I would then recommend using the wildcard for the quarterfinals in matchday 5, the 12th man in the following round in matchday 6, and the maximum captain for the Club World Cup final. And I did something similar for the World Cup Fantasy a few years ago, where it was called a power captain, but essentially the chip was the exact same, and Kylian Mbappe scored a hat-trick against Argentina, even though France still lost that game. But that is my updated chip strategy. You might not have every single chip available, so if you use the wildcard in Matchday 2 or 3, then you could use the 12th man in Matchday 5 instead, or maybe vice versa. You've still got the wildcard but not the 12th man, so nothing really changes there in my opinion, but I think the maximum captain is best used in Matchday 6 or 7, and with the 12th man, ideally you'd use it as early as possible, but I think the qualification booster is more important to use straight away, and with the wildcard chip, I think it will be the most powerful if you use it in Matchday 5, because you can set yourself up for 3 rounds, and we do get a lot of transfers for every single stage of the competition, and the deeper we go in this tournament, we're going to get even more transfers, and we can also pick more players from the same club. All of that is broken down in my chip strategy video and my how to play guide. The same goes for all the rules that you need to know for Club World Cup Fantasy, and hopefully after seeing this section you will understand what the qualification booster is and the best time to use it in conjunction with your remaining chips. Another important factor of Club World Cup Fantasy at this stage of the competition is that we have all received a 5 million increase to our budget, similar to what we get in UCL Fantasy for the round of 16 in that tournament as well. So we will all have 105 million in our budget because the prices are fixed in this game, so there will be no falls or rises as discussed throughout all of my content for this tournament, but that extra 5 million could come in very handy, especially for wildcarders in Matchday 5, and of course for our unlimited transfers team in Matchday 4. Let's start off with the 2 goalkeepers. I'll also work my way through the other positions, discussing the best players in every single area. Paris Saint-Germain are the best ranked team in this tournament. I have shown the power rankings on several occasions throughout my content, and nothing has changed there. In fact, their chances of winning this tournament have gone up. They are now the most likely to win the Club World Cup, and they have kept 2 clean sheets in the group stages, and despite losing to Botafogo 1-0 in Matchday 2, they still finished top of Group B, and they'll now face Inter Miami, where I think PSG are heavy favourites, and I think tripling or quadrupling on PSG is certainly worth it, because yes, we can now pick up to 4 players from the same club, and Donnarumma in goal is arguably the best goalkeeper in isolation. But as the backup, so to speak, I'm going for another Italian in Di Gregorio, who was terrible for me in UCL Fantasy, but I think he's been fairly decent in this competition so far, facing 2 weak opponents in Wydad Casablanca and Al Ain. We'll see how Juventus gets on against Man City, but if Juve end up facing Real Madrid in the round of 16, then I would avoid Di Gregorio at least and not doubling or tripling up on Juventus. So that game will be very important in determining whether we load up on City or Juventus for the knockout stages. But I think if Di Gregorio actually faces a decent opponent in the round of 16 for Matchday 4 and Juventus top their group, I think it's worth going really heavy on their assets, and he's one of the best options in this position, but it all depends on the upcoming fixture. We'll find out very soon, but I think this goalkeeper combination in isolation and on paper looks very solid for the round of 16. Denzel Dumfries made his return in Matchday 3 as Inter Milan kept the clean sheet and beat River Plate 2-0 to finish top of their group. They're now rewarded, so to speak, with a fixture against Fluminense, and you could even feasibly double up on that Inter Milan defence, but be very wary of the upcoming rounds like the quarter-final stages, where I think the fixtures are quite difficult on that side of the bracket. So that's something you want to bear in mind when building your wildcard squad, or in this case, your unlimited transfers team. But I think Denzel Dumfries is still the best Inter Milan asset overall, especially in that defensive line. And you can say something similar about Hakimi. I discussed both of these players quite heavily in my UCL Fantasy coverage, and they were 2 of the best options in the knockout stages. They have the attacking potential, they play in very solid teams, especially Paris Saint-Germain, who are currently the best side in club football, and Hakimi scored in Matchday 3. I'm not even going to go into the details of trying to buy him in, then having an error in the system, so I lost out on 7 points in the process, but it is what it is. I'm kind of used to it by now with this Club World Cup Fantasy game. But you've also got Nuno Mendes, Bacho, and Marquinhos. But since all of them have over 5% ownership, I just go for the one with the most attacking potential, and that's undoubtedly Hakimi, who is scoring in a Champions League final, the Coupe de France final, and in all these important games as well. So I think Hakimi is worth the extra millions and investment, and he definitely is worth that hefty price tag. So he's probably the best defender in the game, especially for Matchday 4, where I believe PSG are the heavy favourites against Inter Miami and could keep yet another clean sheet. The next defender will be Anton, and he got 9 points for me in matchday 3, one of the shining lights. It's just a shame I sold Svensson, who scored the winning goal, but it is what it is, right? That is fantasy for you. Sometimes you get lemons and sometimes you get something else, but that is a decent defensive line in my opinion. You've got that double up with PSG, with Donnarumma and Hakimi, and then you can go for other different teams and balance things out accordingly. There is Otamendi facing Chelsea. It's a poor fixture for the matchday 4, but I think Benfica could go through, and if you are using the qualification booster for the round of 16, that could work fairly well if you go for picks like Anton, who on paper would have a great chance of progressing against Monterrey, but the Mexican side can't be underestimated, and you might actually favour them instead and go for Sergio Ramos in this defensive line. So there are different ways of going about it, but Anton does have less than 5% ownership, and that's very important in a game like this where you can get scouting bonus, and it is very useful, especially for goalkeepers and defenders. So when possible, try to go for those defensive options with less than 5% ownership, because they can give you 9 points very easily in any given match day. But there are 2 defenders left, and yes, guess what? There's going to be one more defensive double up here, and it will be with Juventus. It all depends, though, on who they face in the round of 16 and whether they top their group or not. But Cambiasso is yet another differential with less than 5% ownership who qualifies for the scouting bonus, just like Di Gregorio and Anton. But of course, Donnarumma, Dumfries and Hakimi are very template picks in this position. And Cambiasso did fairly well for me in matchday 2. He got the assist, and he actually had 5% ownership at the time, but he still qualified for the scouting bonus, even though in the rules it says you need less than 5% ownership. But the final defender is from Bayern Munich, and he does have that low ownership you're looking for. And whilst you can go for Upamecano, who is now back from his injury, I would go for an even cheaper option who only cost 4.9 million in Stanisic, who was also in my team for match days 1 and 2. And I think this defensive line is very solid overall. You might not be a big fan of 2 defensive double-ups, and I completely get that, especially if Juventus have a tough opponent in match day 4. But I think the rest looks fairly solid, and they have appealing fixtures for the round of 16, and PSG is one of those teams you'd want to double up on defensively and maybe even triple up, but you've got great options in the midfield, and that's the next position I'll be covering. Ousmane Dembele hasn't featured in the Club World Cup so far, but all the reports indicate from the beginning that he'd miss the group stages and be available for the round of 16, so let's see if that comes to fruition. Is he ready to start against Inter Miami? If so, he might even be the best midfielder for the round of 16, but he might start the game and then be subbed off early, so it is a slightly risky pick either way. He is the most expensive midfielder in the game after all, but I think it could be worth tripling or quadrupling up on PSG, and Dembele would be part of the best quartet for Paris Saint-Germain. And I think going for that double up in the midfield is also worthwhile, and at the moment Kvaratskhelia would be my favourite to partner him in this position. Now with Doué, he isn't getting any goals or assists in this tournament, but we all know his potential, and he also plays in those forward positions. But Kvaratskhelia scored in matchday 3, delivering 9 points against Seattle Sounders. So going for these 2 expensive midfielders could definitely pay off, and you compare them to the other premium midfielders in the game, like Bellingham, who scored in matchday 2, but he has had a poor 2025 in comparison. And Cole Palmer hasn't scored in 26 games in terms of non-penalty goals. So that is a very poor streak that he's currently on. And Musiala is another kind of injury doubt, so to speak. He was an unused substitute against Benfica in their 1-0 loss. And Elise is the other one who kind of stands out above the rest. And speaking of which, I think he has to be in this team as well. He is template, but I think there is a good reason for that. And in terms of Bayern Munich attackers, I know we've got Harry Kane up front, but I would rank Elise even higher. He is, of course, cheaper, and typically in this game, midfielders are cheaper than forwards, but Elise has the goals and assist potential. He can combine both in the same match and deliver double-digit hauls very consistently. And Bayern Munich don't have the greatest route to the final per se, but in the round of 16 against a strong Flamengo side, they would still be the favourites to win that game. But be very careful, because Bayern Munich could be caught cold, as they were against Benfica, where they rotated, and potentially they could pay the price by the end of this tournament. But Elise is my favourite Bayern Munich midfielder. You could even double up on the Bavarians with Musiala as well, but in terms of his minutes, they could be less secure than Michael Elise, who has nailed down that right-hand spot for the entirety of this season. He has had a great debut campaign for Bayern Munich, and he's a great option overall. Now, in the Chelsea-Benfica game, it might surprise you, but I think Benfica have a chance of going through, and that's why Di Maria is definitely worth the inclusion. This will be his last tournament for Benfica, and then he'll move on to his boyhood club, Rosario Central, and he's got 30 points in this tournament so far. He may have blanked in matchday 3 against Bayern Munich, but he got big returns in matchdays 1 and 2, but all of his goals have been penalties, so that is maybe not sustainable per se, but even from open play, he's making key passes, he's completing a lot of dribbles and looking threatening all the time, so he can create chances and score goals, and the fact he's on penalties makes him the standout Benfica attacker, even over Pavlidis, who offers decent value in the forward line, and I think Di Maria at 7.3 million is one of the best midfielders in the game. But the last option is going to be a bit of a concern, and maybe he's not locked in, and I could see him being removed in future drafts and by the time I do my team selection. But Phil Foden, if Man City have a good fixture in matchday 4, he could be worth it, and I also think he's got the highest ceiling of any City midfielder at this moment in time. And if you don't go for Haaland up front, this could be a nice way of somewhat compensating for that sort of hole in your squad. You want to have a Man City attack, in my opinion, especially if they face the likes of Al Hilal or a different team that isn't Real Madrid in matchday 4. But even against Los Blancos, I think that could be a high-scoring game, and the likes of Foden can still deliver. He has done it against them before, and in the Champions League, he has been very consistent. And in matchday 1, he got a massive return, of course, against Wydad Casablanca. Only 45 minutes, though, in matchday 2 against Al Ain, and Man City got a heavy win, but it might not be enough in terms of the goal difference because Juventus have been on fire in this tournament so far. That should be a great clash, of course, later tonight. And after that game has concluded, I think they'll iron out the details for a final squad for matchday 4. There is no doubt that my midfield is very expensive, so I need that sort of enabler in the forward line to facilitate the rest of my 15-man squad, and Igor Jesus might be the very best. My only concern is that Botafogo, as good as they have been in this tournament, they're facing a decent Palmeiras side, and their recent matchups have been very tight. I think it's 4 wins for Botafogo, 3 draws and 3 losses over the last 10, so it's very difficult to call that sort of matchup. And in the league so far this season, Palmeiras are doing better, but Botafogo have also been a little bit unlucky. They've lost certain games 1-0, and their goal difference is actually very high for a team in their position and with a number of games played so far in the Brazilian league. But Igor Jesus has scored several times against Palmeiras in his career, and I think he's a great punt at 4.1 million. And remember the captaincy windows. So that is the first game of matchday 4, Botafogo versus Palmeiras. Ideally, you'd have one player from one of those teams, so you've got that captaincy window covered, and then you can switch it to someone who plays later on in that day and just keep switching it to every single match within this match day, because that's the way the captaincy works, and it's all addressed in my recent videos and podcasts. If you still have any questions, then let me know down in the comment section below. But the second forward will be a premium, and he did let me down big time in matchday 1, and as I said would happen, in matchday 2 I'd sell him and he'd do really well. That is Harry Kane. He is still a very solid and consistent choice with a high ceiling, and facing Flamengo, I still think he's a solid choice, but I do think the opposition is quite tough, and Bayern Munich might struggle a little bit, so maybe tripling up is a bit of a risk, especially with a potential matchup against PSG in the quarterfinal stage as well. But I think for the round of 16, it can work fairly well, and Harry Kane is still one of the best forwards in this game. If Mbappe's fit, he might be another one you want to go for, or Erling Haaland, especially if Man City have that appealing fixture for matchday 4. But Harry Kane is still one of the best options in the game, period. So I don't think you can go wrong with Harry Kane and his consistency, the penalty taking, the open play threat, and his goal record for Bayern Munich is simply ridiculous. But the final forward is Yildiz, who is currently the highest scoring forward in the game, and I think Juventus are worth doubling or tripling up on if they top their group. Otherwise, you might want to trim that down. But Yildiz, irrespective of if he faces Real Madrid or Al Hilal, he is going to be a very appealing option at that price tag, even more so than Pavlidis, in my opinion. And I think that's one of the missed opportunities from me during the group stages when he faced Al Ain and Wydad Casablanca in the first 2 match days. And Yildiz, I think, has that high ceiling. The ownership is no longer less than 5% because of what he's been doing, but it's still quite low, so any returns he does get will help you rise up in those mini leagues and the overall rankings. And in terms of Juventus attackers, I know you've got Conceição in the midfield and a few other options, but I think Yildiz is by far the best option. He has had a breakout tournament, so to speak. He's still very young with a lot of potential. And I think this 50-man squad is very competitive. There might be a few question marks about it. I completely get it. Dembele's fitness, is he going to start the game? Also having Igor Jesus as one of the strikers, but I think he covers that captaincy window and makes up for it. And Phil Foden, his minutes have been very insecure over the last year or so, and with any Man City attacker or asset at the moment, they could rotate in every single game. But going into the knockout stages, I think that'll be less common, and I think they'll just go for their strongest teams because there is a lot of prize money on offer. $125 million for the winner, and I believe every single team will take it seriously as a result. There are some question marks about my 50-man squad with Dembele's fitness, Foden's minutes, and you could even say a few picks are a little bit suspect, like Igor Jesus, but I think there are some kind of good reasons behind every single pick, and I think throughout this video I have discussed that fairly well. The same goes for the update chip strategy guide towards the beginning, and also the confirmed fixtures so far, and we obviously have 2 more round of 16 games that are yet to be confirmed, and once they are, they'll be addressed in my team selection podcast and also in the deadline stream. A commonly asked question is about the starting 11 and who would I bench and all that stuff. It's all about the dates. That's the most important thing. So those playing early in the match day, you want to have in your starting 11, and those that play towards the end, so in this case, it would be the Juventus, Man City and Real Madrid assets. If they go through, which I think they will, then I think that's what you want to go for in terms of your bench, and I've been doing that throughout the group stages as well. So Donnarumma would be in goal, and Di Gregorio would be my backup if needed. And I've got a back 4 of Dumfries, Stanisic, Hakimi, and Anton, with Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Elise and Di Maria, and then Igor Jesus and Harry Kane. That completes the starting 11, and Igor Jesus plays first, and that's why he would be my first captain with this first draft. And on the bench, I would have Yildiz, Cambiasso and Foden alongside my backup goalkeeper, as discussed before. And in terms of the captaincy, I just keep on switching it. I'd probably go to Hakimi next, maybe Dembele if he starts. That would be a slight, consideration I'd have, I think, for that game in particular. And then from Bayern Munich, I'd probably captain Elise, but Harry Kane isn't too far off. Then Di Maria from that Chelsea Benfica game and stuff like that. Also Dumfries facing Fluminense, and in this case Anton facing Monterrey. So that's basically the way you want to order it. Just check the order of the fixtures and who plays first, and just keep switching the captaincy if you're not happy with your score. And all of that has been covered in most of my podcasts. It's a shame that the captaincy has been reduced to this, because I think it would have been a bit more challenging and fun if we had 1 per day within a match day, rather than having 2 or 3 opportunities within the same day, and if not, just having 1 or 2 captaincy shouts overall, like we did in the World Cup a few years ago. And of course in FPL, you only get 1 shot of the captaincy, and typically it can go wrong if you're not captaining someone like Salah or Erling Haaland. But that is my current 50-man squad with this first draft, and there will be some tweaks, of course, made over the next couple of hours and also over the next day. And in my team selection, that'll be very close to what I finally go for. Maybe it will actually be locked in like it was for match day 1 and also match day 2, because I think I've had a very good idea of what I wanted to do in this game, and sometimes the deadline will lock even earlier if needed. But I will be there on Saturday around 2 hours before the deadline, and answering all your questions, covering the captaincy, team news, injury updates, you name it. But everything you need to know for Club World Cup Fantasy is right here. That concludes my first draft for Club World Cup Fantasy, and with unlimited transfers, I mean, the possibilities are almost endless, you could say, for this Matchday 4 deadline, and I think there will be a lot of different ways of approaching it. Do you use the Qualification Booster? And if so, you really want to load up on teams that you're really confident about, like Paris Saint-Germain, and if things go wrong, of course, it can go horribly wrong, but you want to think positive and really load up on the teams you really back. And I think there are certain players like Dembele that can be game changers at this stage of the competition. He's still quite template overall, with a lot of dead teams owning him, but I still think in terms of those engaged managers you're competing against in your mini leagues and the rankings, that is where you can get an edge by, going for that extra player from a certain team and quadrupling up. But it's all about balance as well. And if you have the wild card in your back pocket, I think it can be greatly used in match day 5. I think that is the best time to use it at this stage of the competition, and even compared to those that wildcarded back in match day 2 or 3, maybe Matchday 5 was the correct answer all along. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream for Club World Cup Fantasy, FPL, and the Champions League. Let's try to get this to over 200 likes on YouTube, and let's keep on pushing towards new goals like 34,000 subscribers. Follow me on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you on Saturday for that Matchday 4 deadline stream, and keep your eyes peeled for even more videos.